Hi there, my name is Leanne Ruff and I'm your instructor for DBA 110, Section 201, Database Concepts. For this course, we're going to be using Microsoft Office 365, and it will feature Access 2016 or Access 365. They are in essence the same software. It just depends on which subscription you have, but they work exactly the same way. When we're done with this course, you will be more savvy than almost anyone you know in how to manage databases. We're going to learn some simple things like how to set up a simple relational database that works for you, to some very complex slick tools and skills that only you'll have. If you live in Henderson County, you're probably already aware that if you want to get a position with the school system, they require that at the very minimum you have this course under your belt and some familiarity with Microsoft Access. So that being said, there are a couple of things I want to go through. This little video is just an introduction or a first look-see at Access in general, but also in how you ought to organize things as you progress through the course. One of the things you'll learn about Access is that it's really all about organization. There's some other things, like a database can only be used fully by one person at a time. It can be interacted and used in other ways by other people at the same time, but to actually make changes to the database is always protected. The real strength of Access is that it always protects the data. It's all about maintaining the data integrity. So let's just get started. You can see the course screen, and I'm going to show you first how to open Access, and then the other thing we're going to do is my advice to you, and you'll find it in the course, is that you set up folders to manage your files. So I'm going to show you, if you have, there's a video in the course on creating folders, but just in case you have forgotten or haven't done it in a while, I'm going to walk through it in this video, and then I'm going to take a small break, and then we're going to get into the features in Module 1. And well, maybe not as far as Module 1. We'll get into just how to get into and recognize some things about Access that are dissimilar or not the same as with other Microsoft Office productivity applications. Okay, let's take a look at let's just open Access. So there are a couple of things. If you click the Start button here, you'll see that the files are in alphabetical order. Access is right to the top. Because I'm going to be using it a lot, I'm going to make myself a button on the taskbar. And if you right click the software, you'll have some options. It tells you can pin it to Start, and that's helpful, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose the More option, and I'm going to pin it to the taskbar. And then you'll see down here it's giving me a little icon down here at the taskbar so that I can easily open Access anytime I'm ready. And for this application, for this video, we're just going to open Access. And you'll see, as do most of the Microsoft Office applications, you have some built-in templates, some different types of things that are available to you. You'll notice up here that I have already logged into my Microsoft account. That is a good idea, especially if you have Access 365 or Microsoft Office 365, because they update the software all the time, and this will ensure that you always have the latest and greatest update, and it will also help you maintain the integrity of all of your files, not just Access, but all Microsoft files, productivity software files. But now one of the things you'll notice in Access that's different is that, well, let me just click this button and you'll see. So with this software, the first thing they ask you to do is to name it. In other softwares, as you are probably familiar, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, you go right into a blank Word document, a blank presentation, or a blank spreadsheet, and you begin working right away. And then at some point, either when you get ready to close it or after you've done a significant amount of work, you save the file and name it. For databases, remember I said that Access's primary goal is to maintain the integrity of the data, so it makes you name the file first. So I'm going to name this Access Walkthrough. The other thing I'm going to do is I don't want it to just go to a default location. I'm going to force it into a folder. So I'm going to choose this folder right here. And I am using, there are all kinds of options. You could put it in the Documents folder and create a folder there. I'm going to use Dropbox. You can see I have lots of folders in here. And you know what? I think I will put it in Documents just for this exercise. And because if I go to my Dropbox, you'll see the folders I've already created, and that will not give you a full view of exactly what we're doing. So I'm going to create a new folder here in the Documents folder, and I'm going to call it DBA 110. Inside that folder, I'm going to make some other folders because we need one for every module. We need one for the final exam files. We need them for data files, but I think what we'll do is we'll make data file folders as we need them. So for this folder, I'm going to make a folder called Module 1. And then for Module 2. Module 3. Module 4, Module 5, Module 6, Module 7, Module 8, and Module 10. We're not doing Module 9. And I'm going to make a folder for the final exam. I'm just going to call it Final Exam. And we'll talk about that much later in the semester. But for this video, I'm going to save it directly to the DBA 110 folder itself, and I'm going to call it Access Walkthrough. And now you can see it's going to create a folder. For this exercise is on my C drive in the users folder. Inside that folder is a folder called Student. Inside that folder is a folder called Documents. Inside that folder is the folder I just created called DBA 110. And I'm going to create the database. So that's the significant difference. So one of the things is it opens up the file. You can see it has the name right here, Access Walkthrough. And it by default, when it opens up, it creates this thing called Table 1. We're not going to, in fact, the book does walk you through how to use this. I don't use it. I find it a little bit awkward. So I'm just going to close it. And I just want to go through what's in the tabs now in Access. And I'll make a couple of tables and do that. But mostly I just want to go through the tabs. So over here on the File tab, you'll see there's not a lot because I haven't done anything yet. But there's some options. The Info tab here just tells you what file you're working in and gives you some option. We will work with compact and repair and encrypting a password later on in the semester. If I click on the New tab, it gives you several options. There are many online templates that are available. But it gives you a way to open a new database. You can see you can search online templates. There are literally thousands of these things that are already somewhat created, and you just have to customize them for your own needs. The Open tab lets you go through and search or browse for a database. You'll be using this a lot. The other option you have to store files is OneDrive, which also comes with your Microsoft account. Over here on the right hand side, it'll show you what you've looked at lately, what you've opened, you know, recently. I think I have this one set up to show me 10 files. All right, the next item is save, which is not highlighted because we haven't done anything yet. So that's the other thing. Database will only allow you to save if you've made a structural change to the database. If you accidentally enter data that's incorrect, it doesn't care. Save is only applies when you make a change to the database, but not when you change the data. So anytime you put data within a database, it automatically saves. You don't have to save it, it'll save. Save only becomes an option when you have structurally made a change. It can be something simple like changing a column width or changing something like that, but definitely any kind of structural change. The next one is save as. And so we'll get to that, but you'll be doing a lot of save as functioning as we progress through the course. The print option for me is not available because I don't have a printer routed to this printer, to this particular computer. Of course, the close option is here, and then down below that you have the account that gets into your Microsoft Office account, and then options for access. So we can take a look at it. And here on options, there's some things you can do. Here it tells you the normal way that it's going to save and where the default location. You can always change that and have it route to another folder. Your username, you can put your name in here and your initials, and whenever you save the file, it'll apply those automatically for you. Each one of these options has some things, some items that you can choose. I usually look in I think the proofing is that where, let me go up to general. Well, I was looking for something. Look here. Well, you will have one part of the course that has you go through the Trust Center. I don't want to get into it now, but it will have you go through the Trust Center because we'll be doing some macro enabled databases. But when we get to that, I'll walk through that. Alright, so that's what's on the File tab. Now on the Home ribbon, you have all of these options. Again, as with any other office environment, only the ones that are apply to what you're working in will be highlighted. The rest will be dimmed. And so as you can see, most of these are dimmed. On the Create side, you see most of these are highlighted, which means we can create tables, we can create tables by design, we can create queries, we can use a wizard or do a query by design, which is what I prefer. I'm going to walk you through that. And you can put in blank forms. This is all kinds of things. As this course progresses, you will become masters at each one of these sections. This next tab is to get external data. You will also be doing that. You will be importing Excel files, Access files, and also text files. The next ribbon is Database Tools. You'll be using all of these options except the add-ins. I don't think we'll get to that. Alright, so let me show you. We're going to go to the Home tab, and you can see right now this is set up to show all Access objects, and this database doesn't have any. I'm going to create a table, and I'm going to use a table design system actually, and I'm going to so the main thing about tables is there has to be one field that is completely unique. It has data that's completely unique. It's usually a number or some kind of ID. I'm going to call this course ID, and I'm going to say that it's a short text file. For now, I'm going to say that the field size for this short text is 3. So the course ID can only have 3 characters. And the rest of these things, we're not going to address them yet. I'm going to name the next field course number, course name. and I'm going to make it short text, and I'm going to leave it with an unlimited or the 255 default number of characters. I'm going to call it, I'm going to make this one a course type, and instead of short text I'm going to make this let's see, I'll leave it like this, short text. I'll leave it short text for now. I don't want to get too complex right away. And then here I'm going to put instructor ID. It's going to also be short text, and I'm going to have it short text, and I'm going to give it 3 characters. Alright, so now this is the main structure of this table. For every table, you have to have a primary key. That is that piece of data whereby the data that you enter is uniquely sorted and stored. So I'm going to make the course ID the primary key. That means when I enter data, I cannot have any primary keys that are duplicated. So I'm going to make that the primary key. As you can see, all I did was click up here and click it, and then over here you can see it puts a little key here. And now I'm going to save this, and I'm going to name the table courses. And I'm going to leave this like this for now. Oh, you know what? Let's just switch the view and actually enter some data. So if I go here and do data sheet view, I'm going to start putting in a course. I'm just going to make a course 101. Remember I said it can only be 3 characters. If I try to put in, you hear the keyboard? If I try to put in another character, I get an alert that I only have a limit of 3. The course name, I'm going to call it Access, or let's say begin, let's call it Access 1. Course type, I'm going to say seated. And the instructor ID, I'm going to say, that's me, LR1. And if I just hit tab, it'll go to the next row. And I'm going to make this one course 102. And I'm going to call it Access 2. That's Roman numeral 2. And I'm going to make this one online. Oh, sorry. Online. And I'm going to make this instructor JH2. I'm going to tab. I'm going to put in 2 more courses. Make this one 103. We'll call it Access 3. I'll make this one online as well. I'll make JH2 the instructor for that one. And then 104, we'll just do that one. And I think that'll be enough for this. And we'll make this one seated. No, we'll make it online. And we'll make this one VC3. Alright, so now we have 4 courses. They have unique names. That's the primary key, remember. So let me show you what happens if I try to put in another primary key. I'm going to save this first. Well, actually, I don't need to save anything. It's the data saved automatically. But if I try to put in 101, and let's just say I put it Access 5, it's letting me do it. And I'm going to put in LR1. Now, I see an error message. It says, the changes you requested to the table were not successful because they would create duplicate values in the index, primary key, or relationship. I cannot have duplicate values in a primary key. So I can only have one 101 there. Change the data in the field or fields that contain duplicate data. Remove the index or redefine the index to permit duplicate entries, and try again. Just say okay. And then we're going to delete this. Just going to delete this data. And I'm going to get rid of this row. I'm just highlighting it. You see I just went to the, if I go to the end there, you can highlight the whole row, and I'm just going to hit delete on the keyboard. Says you're about to delete one record. Yes. Alright, so this table is finished. Let's just close it. And I'm going to create a new table. And I'm going to make this one instructor ID. Short text. And I'm going to make it 3 characters. Just like the instructor ID field that was in the courses table. And I'll explain that in a minute. The next field I'm going to make is instructor name. I'll make it short text. The next field I'm going to say instructor telephone or instructor email. Let's do instructor email. Make it short text. And then instructor phone. Make it short text. And for this table, every table has to have a primary key. For this table, the instructor ID is going to be the primary key. I'm going to follow the same steps. And let's go ahead and fill that table in. Let me save it for, well, I'll show you what happens when I try to switch view to data sheet view. Again, as you can see, it says the table must first be saved. I'm going to say, it asks, do you want to save the table now? Yes. And I'm going to name this instructors. So now we have 2 tables, courses and instructors. And I'm going to fill this in. LR1, that's going to be Leanne. And I can't read that, so I don't remember what it is. Let me show you a handy tool. If I get between the 2 and double click, it'll auto fit these columns so you can read everything. Instructor email, I'm just going to put I'm just going to populate this with some somewhat fictitious data. And I'm going to tab and do the second one. I believe that was JH2. And that's going to be Jana Hosmer. And I'm just going to, this is not her correct email, but that is irrelevant to me. And then I'm going to do the last one, which I think was VC3. I'm going to make that Vanessa. We'll put Dr. Caps in here. And we'll put a fictitious, this is not her. Well, actually, I think it is her email, but don't email her. Alright, so now we have data in all 3 of these, in both of these tables. So I'm going to open the courses table too. So what you have, the connection now you have between the course and the instructors table. These are the courses. They have unique identifiers, but you can see that the instructor ID changes. You can have, these can be unique. You can have 1,000 courses. They can be 101. I mean, it can go up to whatever number, and you might only have three or 4 instructors, but they will balance out and teach all of these courses among the group of instructors. So we call that a one-to-many relationship. You'll learn about that later. I'm giving you kind of too much of an overload now. In the first module, you're going to create a basic set of tables like this that relate one to the other. And then you're also going to create a query which shows you how to pull data from a table. And you're going to create some forms that are automatically created. But I think that's enough for just how to manage access as it is.